Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please let me introduce the three authors of this work, Ms. Adrienn Bartha, Mr. Viktor Kéri, and the third one is Emőke Szűcs Kanda, and I will be the presenter. The title of the work is Women's Economic Participation as a Growth Factor and Hidden Source of Loss, a Structural Economic Model. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are ready, please let me share with you the structure of our presentation. In the next 10 minutes, I will cover first the methodological background of the study, second, the analytical framework, then the key results at the micro, meso, and macro levels. After that, structural friction, such as financing gap and psychosocial risk. Finally, macroeconomic implications and economic policy recommendations. Let us begin with the research aims and the methodology. As you can see above written, our work's research keywords. Please let me share with you the aim of this study. It was to show that women's economic participation is not merely a social or equal opportunities issue, but a structural factor in macroeconomic growth and efficiency. We built a conceptual structural model operating 3 levels. We used PRISMA 2020 guidelines, our research based on interdisciplinary secondary analysis. Moving to our slide, which is analytical framework. This slide represents a structural model. On one side, female economic participation generates positive multiplier effects. Higher profitability, better innovation performance, and stronger financial stability. On the other side, structural frictions appear, financing gaps, network capital deficit, psychosocial risks such as smoking. These distortions reduce allocation efficiency and total factor productivity. In other words, the system produces growth, but it also leaks potential output. At the micro level, empirical research shows clear positive relationships. Studies covering 62,000 firms indicate that even 1% increase in female leadership share improves profitability. Companies with female executives show more stable balance sheets, lower volatility in crisis periods. Female leadership is often associated with more moderate risk-taking and sustainable innovation models. So moving on to our topic, which is structural frictions and allocation distortions. Although female-led companies show strong capital efficiency, only around 3% of venture capital globally goes to female founders. This is not merely a representation issue, it's an allocation problem. In economic theory, optimal allocation means that capital flows to the most productive projects. In women-owned firms demonstrate equal or higher efficiency, but receive less capital, the allocation mechanism is distorted. Empirical findings suggest that such financing constructs can generate 5 to 7% productivity gap. So, moving on to the next issue, our presentation, which is psychosocial cost and economic leakage. Structural friction are not only financial. They also appear in organizational culture. Workplace bullying, role conflict, and hidden aggression create psychosocial risk. From a company perspective, this results in higher turnover, absenteeism, burnout, reduced engagement. From a macroeconomic perspective, this is human capital depression. Mental health-related productivity losses may reach up 1% of GDP. We call this economic leakage. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you the most topic risk factor globally in Europe. As you can see, the stress. This leads us to the next slide, which is perception of psychological safety by generation. As you can see, younger generation, especially Gen Z and millennials, place significantly higher value on inclusive and respectful workplace environments. If psychological safety is low, retention decreases. In other words, psychological safety is no longer a soft HR concept. It's becoming a competitiveness variable. Countries and firms that manage psychosocial risk effectively will retain talent and strengthen productivity. Let me share with you our economic policy implications. It means financing and capital allocation reforms, network capital and institutional support, managing psychosocial risk as an economic tool. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me share with you our macroeconomic consequences. International estimates suggest that strengthening women entrepreneurship could increase GDP by 3 to 6%. Financing constructs create measurable productivity gaps. Mental health-related losses may reach up to 1% of GDP. If these resources accumulate over time, they shape national growth trajectories. So, please let me share with you our conclusions. The aim of our study was to show that women's economic participation is not merely a social or equal opportunities issue, but a structural factor in macroeconomic growth and efficiency. However, the study also pointed out the structural friction limit the full realization of these positive multiplier effects, the financing gap, the network capital deficit, and psychosocial risk, especially workplace bullying, reduce the efficient use of human capital and total factor productivity through allocation results. The limitation of this research is that it's based on conceptual model and secondary data without empirical qualitative validation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention.